Chapter 1. The Graduation Speech. The stadium buzzed with excitement. Rows of folding chairs packed with proud parents, cell phones pointed skyward, and handmade signs waving in the hot breeze. A banner stretched across the bleachers read, "Congratulations, Class of 2025," in bold letters. The June sun glared above, but nobody seemed to care. Jake Reed adjusted the collar of his button-down shirt, sweat dampening the fabric at the back of his neck. He held his phone up, squinting through the screen, searching. There they are, he muttered to himself, spotting his kids, Madison and Tyler, towards the center of the graduating class. They were wearing matching navy blue robes and caps, both beaming, both waving as they spotted their mom. Samantha stood next to him in a flowing white dress, designer sunglasses hiding her eyes. She blew kisses toward the stage. "There's our babies," she said with a grin that didn't quite reach her voice. Jake chuckled, his heart full. "I did it," he thought. "We did it. 20 years of work, sacrifice, missed vacations, overtime shifts, and quiet Sunday mornings spent balancing the checkbook. Also, they could stand here today, walking toward a future he'd bled to secure." He zoomed in with the camera, getting a close-up of Tyler's goofy grin and Madison's perfectly curled hair. She got that from her mom. "They're beautiful, huh?" he said softly. Samantha didn't respond. She was busy texting. Jake looked at her for a moment, a hint of unease tugging at his chest. She hadn't really talked to him the whole ride here. Lately, she hadn't really talked to him at all. But he shook the thought off. It's a big day. Stress, nerves, emotions. He focused on the stage as the school principal called out the names one by one. Applause echoed after each. Then, finally, Madison and Tyler Reed, co-valedictorians. The stadium erupted with cheers. Samantha clapped with enthusiasm. Jake's throat tightened with pride. He rose to his feet, video still rolling, grinning like a fool. The twins walked to the podium together, arms linked. Jake expected the usual rehearsed speech, some inspiring line about chasing dreams and thanking family. That's what they practiced at the dinner table last week. Tyler leaned into the mic first, smiling nervously. "We just want to say, thank you." Madison took over, her voice stronger. "Yeah, we want to thank the people who really shaped us. The ones who supported us when it mattered." Jake's smile broadened. "I want to thank my real dad," Madison said, voice cracking. Jake blinked. "Not the one who paid the bills," she continued, "but the one who was actually there for every game, every meltdown, every late-night study session." A few murmurs stirred in the audience. Tyler added, "The man who stepped in when we needed him. Uncle Marcus." The crowd gasped. Jake felt the air punch out of his lungs. There was a scattered applause. Confused, hesitant. Jake's hands lowered, his phone shaking in his grip. He looked over at Samantha. She wasn't stunned. She wasn't shocked. She was smiling, tight-lipped, awkward but not panicked. Her sunglasses still on. Jake turned his head slowly. Like in a nightmare, he couldn't stop watching. And there, 2 rows ahead, stood Marcus, his younger brother. Dressed casually, like he always did. Khaki pants, sport coat over a t-shirt, sunglasses hanging from his collar. Marcus didn't look away. He smirked. And then, right there in front of hundreds of people, he threw his arm casually over Samantha's shoulder from behind. She didn't push him away. Jake's heart stopped. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a mistake. They meant it. His fingers curled around the phone like a vice. The lens still pointed at the stage, but he wasn't filming anymore. Not really. He was just standing, frozen, like a statue in a world that kept spinning without him. He could hear the twins finishing their speech, could hear the polite claps, the fading mic feedback, the principal awkwardly thanking them and shifting to the next student. Jake couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His thoughts spun into chaos. Uncle Marcus? Real dad? What the hell does that mean? Why didn't Sam look surprised? How long has this been going on? Why would they do this here in public? On today of all days? Questions screamed in his mind, each louder than the last. But his body refused to react. His eyes stayed fixed on Samantha and Marcus. Her lips were tight, her arms crossed, but she wasn't pulling away from Marcus. She stood there, allowing it, as if she didn't just watch her husband be humiliated in front of an entire community. Jake's face felt numb. He wasn't even angry yet. There wasn't room. It was shock, betrayal, emptiness. He glanced around, hoping someone, anyone, might look at him with sympathy, concern, confusion. But no one was looking at Jake. The moment had passed. The twins walked off stage, grinning and high-fiving friends. The audience cheered for the next name. Laughter resumed. Sunlight still beat down. The world moved on. Except him. Jake quietly stepped back, sliding his phone into his pocket. His fingers brushed the wedding band on his hand, and something inside him snapped, silently, without ceremony. He turned, slowly, deliberately, and started walking down the aisle toward the parking lot. His legs moved on their own. The cheers, names, and camera flashes all blurred behind him. Not one of them noticed he was leaving. Not Samantha. Not Marcus. Not the kids. Nobody. He stepped through the gate, pushed open the chain-link exit, and walked into the parking lot, heart pounding, hands cold. And no one followed. Not even once. Chapter 2. A quiet drive, a louder storm. Jake Reed sat behind the wheel of his old Silverado, staring through the windshield as the graduation crowd dissolved behind him. The sounds of car horns, laughter, and distant applause faded into a distant murmur. The afternoon sun still burned overhead, but he felt cold. He didn't start the engine right away. His fingers gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. His phone lay face down on the passenger seat. He didn't want to look at it. Didn't want to see any photos or messages. Not now. Not after that. Uncle Marcus. Our real dad. The words rang in his ears like an alarm he couldn't shut off. He finally turned the key, and the engine rumbled to life. He put in drive and rolled out of the lot, past rows of parked cars and oblivious parents, everyone still wrapped up in their happy little moments. He drove in silence. No music, no radio, just the soft hum of the engine and the sound of wind brushing past the windows. His thoughts were a hurricane. Maybe it was a joke, he told himself. A prank. Something stupid kids say. Madison and Tyler are smart, but maybe they were just trying to be funny? But the way Samantha didn't react, the way she stood there while Marcus draped his arm over her, no. That wasn't a joke. That was rehearsed. Jake's jaw clenched. He turned off onto the freeway, his hands steady on the wheel, but his chest burning like someone had hollowed him out with a blowtorch. How long? How long has this been going on? He couldn't remember the last time he and Samantha laughed together. Really laughed. Couldn't remember the last time she touched him without flinching, or the last time they talked without it feeling like a business meeting. Late nights at work. Girls' weekends in Napa. Marcus is just helping out. He's good with the kids. It all played like a movie reel in his head. Every excuse she gave him suddenly reeking of rotten truth. He remembered catching her whispering on the phone once at 1 o'clock a.m., sitting in the hallway, saying just 10 more minutes, I promise. He had assumed she was talking to a friend. He wanted to believe that. Jake merged onto a back road that curved through their quiet neighborhood. Trees lined both sides, casting long shadows across the pavement. Their home was only a few minutes away now, an old two-story he'd poured sweat into over the years. The backyard fence, the renovated kitchen, the roof repairs, he had done all himself. For them. He blinked hard, his eyes burning. Images flooded in, Tyler's first scraped knee, running inside screaming while Jake carried him to the bathroom, calming him with a SpongeBob Band-Aid and a juice box. Madison's science fair win, when he stayed up until 2 o'clock a.m. building a volcano that actually erupted. Birthday parties in the backyard with SpongeBob cakes and cheap rented bouncy houses. Christmas mornings with empty wrapping paper piles and cocoa-stained smiles. Was Marcus there for any of that? No, he wasn't. Jake was. Jake was the one in the trenches. But none of that mattered now, did it? He pulled into the driveway and sat still for a few moments, watching their house. The windows looked peaceful. Curtains gently swayed in the breeze. From the outside, everything looked normal. Fake. He stepped out of the truck and walked slowly to the front door. The key trembled slightly in his hand as he unlocked it and stepped inside. Empty. The house was quiet. No decorations. No laughter. No congratulatory banners like he'd imagined Samantha might put up for the twins. He dropped his keys in a bowl by the door and walked straight to the kitchen. He didn't bother turning on the lights. The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds in jagged beams, carving the darkness like prison bars. Jake opened the cabinet, pulled out a half-finished bottle of bourbon. He didn't usually drink in the middle of the day. Today was an exception. He poured 2 fingers into a glass and stood there for a moment, staring at the liquid. 20 years. 20 years of holding the line, of working late, missing poker nights, saying no to new trucks and yes to braces, band trips, and school laptops. And they thanked Marcus. And did you see the crowd when I said it? Everyone was shocked. They walked into the hallway, still high on adrenaline, still glowing from the stage lights. Jake slowly stood from the couch, setting his empty glass down on the side table. His stomach turned, boiling under his skin. They're laughing. After what they said, after what they did. Not a word of apology, not a hint of guilt, just laughter. He stepped forward. Samantha was halfway through removing her heels when she saw him standing at the edge of the hallway, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "Oh, you're still up," she said flatly. Jake didn't blink. "You think what they said was funny?" Samantha paused, caught mid-movement, then straightened with a sigh. "Jake, don't start." His eyes narrowed. "No, say it. Did you think it was funny?" "They're just kids," she said with a shrug, brushing imaginary dust from her dress. "Don't overreact." Jake felt something twitch in his neck. "Don't overreact?" he repeated, voice low. "They called Marcus their real dad in front of hundreds of people. At their graduation. And you," he pointed at her, "didn't say a damn thing." Tyler walked in, frowning. "Why are you making a big deal about this?" Jake looked at his son, stunned. "You stood up and disrespected me in front of an entire stadium." "I was just being honest," Tyler replied, arms folded. "Uncle Marcus has always been there." Madison joined in, eyes rolling. "He actually shows up, unlike someone we know." Jake took a step back, like their words had slapped him. "I've paid every bill in this house," he said, voice now trembling with fury. "I gave up promotions, vacations, weekends, so you could eat, so you could have a future." "Yeah, and you never shut up about it," Madison scoffed. "Always talking about how tired you are, how much work you've done." Marcus never throws in our faces. He just listens. Jake turned to Samantha. "You gonna say something? Or just let them keep spitting in my face?" Samantha crossed her arms. "Maybe if you were actually around more, Jake, they wouldn't feel that way." His mouth opened, closed. She didn't even flinch. Every time they needed something emotional, someone to talk to, "Where were you?" she snapped. "Oh, right. Working. Paying bills. Hiding in your office like a ghost." "I did what I had to do," he barked. "Because someone had to." Well, maybe they needed more than just a walking bank account. That one landed. He didn't say anything. He just stared at her, eyes locked. The kids were watching now, both wearing that same smug look he'd seen on Marcus earlier. This isn't just a betrayal. This is a setup. This is what they've been building for years. The room spun. He had sacrificed everything for them. Not just money. Himself. His time. His energy. His joy. And now they stood there, handing the crown to Marcus like he was some damn hero. Jake slowly nodded, breathing through his nose. "Okay," he muttered. "Okay." He turned without another word, walked past them, cold, robotic, and entered his home office. The door clicked shut behind him. He sat down at his desk, cracked his knuckles once, and began typing. Chapter 4. The Hidden Ledger. The faint hum of Jake's desktop computer filled the room as he sat alone in the dim light of his home office. Outside the closed door, laughter drifted faintly down the hallway. Samantha and the twins, probably watching something stupid on Netflix like nothing had happened. But inside these 4 walls, the temperature had dropped to winter. Jake stared at the glowing screen. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before he typed in a password. A long one nobody else knew. The screen flashed, and he was in. A file folder sat in the corner of the desktop. Plain name. Easy to ignore. Contingency. He double-clicked it. The folder opened with a soft click. Inside were spreadsheets, PDFs, bank records, scanned deeds, trust paperwork. All neatly organized, time-stamped, updated monthly. Jake had started it 7 years ago, back when something first began to feel off. 7 years earlier, Jake sat across from his old college buddy, Nate Mallory, now a successful family law attorney. They were drinking beers on Nate's back porch. The kids were playing in the yard. Samantha was inside chatting with Nate's wife, oblivious. Nate leaned in, tone casual but firm. You ever think about what happens if your marriage goes sideways? Jake laughed. What, like divorce? Nah, that's not us. I mean, Sam and I have our stuff, but we've been through too much to throw it away. Nate took a long drink and looked at him hard. You ever notice how many guys say that? Right before they lose the house, the car, and half their paycheck for the next 20 years. Jake paused. That's cynical, huh? No, that real, Nate said. Look, I'm not saying anything's happening, but if it ever does, don't let your kindness become your weakness. Jake blinked. What's that supposed to mean? It means if you're the guy who works, saves, sacrifices, and she flips the switch one day, suddenly you're the villain. The provider becomes the punching bag. Jake didn't respond, but something about the words had stuck. Now, sitting in the blue glow of his office, Jake felt no anger, just precision. The warning came true. 7 years later, he clicked open a spreadsheet titled Financial Overview, House and Education. Every expense, every dollar, every asset tracked, all under his name. He made sure of that from day one. Samantha had always hated the paperwork, and he had gladly taken that burden. The mortgage was in his name. So was the deed, the utilities, the college fund, the joint accounts. They were just for show. The real money was routed through accounts only he had access to. Jake exhaled slowly. Cold clarity. He clicked open a tab labeled 529 Withdrawal Planning. Madison and Tyler's college fund. 12 years of deposits, dividends, and growth. Over $180,000 between the two of them. He stared at the numbers. Not with pride. Not anymore. With disappointment. They spit on me in front of a crowd. And now they think they're walking into freshman orientation on my dime? Not anymore. He pulled up the withdrawal interface, paused. The cursor hovered. Then he selected full withdrawal. A confirmation screen popped up, asking for a reason. Jake typed, funds reallocated due to change in beneficiary status. Click. Done. Next came the house. Jake pulled up the home title documents. Scanned. Signed. Filed. All his. Samantha's name had never touched the paperwork. Not out of distrust, but because she'd said, "You're better at that stuff." Funny how that laziness was now a shield. He opened another tab, his trust account. He began transferring the funds from the house equity and savings into the trust under a single beneficiary. Jake Reed. Revocable, of course, but only by him. Then came the bank. He accessed the family joint account, what Samantha and the kids had always used for groceries, school trips, and online shopping. He scrolled through recent transactions. Uber Eats, Sephora, plane tickets from 6 months ago marked Girls' Weekend. Except now he realized Marcus had accidentally tagged along. Jake's fingers tapped quickly. Within 5 minutes, he had locked access. No withdrawals, no transfers, no balance visible. Just one note on the account. Account suspended pending legal review. Then he opened a new document. Title, Notice of Eviction, Family Residence. He copied and pasted the standard format Nate had once given him. 2. Samantha Reed and all non-titled occupants from. Jake Reed, legal owner and sole title holder subject. Notice of termination of occupancy rights. He filled it out like a form. No emotion, no bitterness in the words. Just business. He paused before typing the last line. You are required to vacate the premises within 30 days, or 30 minutes, depending on how generous I'm feeling. He saved the file, then sat back. For a moment, he looked around the room at the framed photos of the kids when they were young. The Disney trip, the science fair, the canoe trip Jake had taken Tyler on when he turned 13. The soccer trophy Madison had cried over until Jake promised her a pizza party just for showing up. He picked up one of the photos, stared at it, then turned it face down. He grabbed another frame. Samantha and him on their 10th anniversary, smiling like fools. That was the trip to Lake Tahoe, where she told him she needed space the week after. He laid it flat on the desk. One by one, he removed every photo from view. Not with rage, with resolve. He stood up, walked to the closet, pulled out the old safe. Inside were hard copies of everything, just in case. As he gathered the files, a small mirror on the closet door caught his eye. He barely recognized the man looking back at him. Gone was the husband waiting for scraps of affection. Gone was the dad who made excuses for his family's disrespect. Gone was the Jake who still believed sacrifice alone earned love. In his place stood someone colder, sharper, focused. The sound of laughter from the hallway had stopped now. The house was quieter, but Jake didn't care. He walked back to his desk, opened a fresh document, and started typing again. Chapter 5. The Truth Files. The sound of the ceiling fan creaked above Jake's head as he sat alone in the office, eyes locked on the screen in front of him. He hadn't slept. It was just past midnight when a notification pinged. Surveillance results, priority delivery. The private investigator Jake had hired wasn't cheap. Nate, his lawyer friend, had recommended him. Said he was discreet, fast, and worth every penny. Jake had wired the payment within an hour of their first call. 48 hours later, the results came in. He clicked the encrypted link. Truth Files, a simple folder filled with names, dates, locations, and enough high-resolution photos to make Jake's stomach turn. He opened the first file. A picture. Samantha and Marcus in a hotel lobby, her hand resting on his lower back, both of them smiling like honeymooners. Timestamp. 6 years ago. Denver. Jake's pulse thudded in his ears. He clicked the next one. New York, 2019, Marcus and Samantha sitting side by side at a rooftop bar, champagne flutes raised. Her head on his shoulder, her wedding ring clearly missing. Jake blinked, stared. He clicked again. Palm Springs, 2021, family photos. The twins were there, laughing, matching shirts. Marcus holding the camera in the reflection of a mirror. Jake was nowhere in sight. They took the kids on vacation with him. Without me. As a family. The PI's detailed summary read like a novel he didn't want to finish. Client's wife has maintained an intimate relationship with client's brother, Marcus Reed, for a minimum of 6 years. Confirmed physical contact on at least 7 occasions, with dozens of unconfirmed overnight stays. Text records show consistent communication, including late-night calls, emotional confessions, romantic exchanges, and planning of trips not disclosed to client. Children were present on at least 4 of the trips, indicating normalization of relationship. Jake's jaw tightened. His throat felt like concrete. He clicked over to the call logs tab. A spreadsheet populated with call durations between Samantha and Marcus. Long calls, multiple times a week, sometimes more than once a day, most of them after midnight. So that's why she never came to bed. He opened the audio tab. There were a few short voicemails, each collected from cloud data via the investigator's software. Legal? Maybe. Ethical? Who cared anymore? He hit play on the top one. It was Marcus, laughing. She keeps saying you're too boring, man. Always with your spreadsheets and bank talk. You're just a walking paycheck to her now. But hey, that works for me. Jake sat frozen. The words didn't echo, they branded. Walking paycheck. The screen blurred for a moment as rage surged up his spine. His breath caught in his chest. A mix of fire and nausea twisted in his stomach, and for the briefest second, he thought about smashing the laptop against the wall. But he didn't. Instead, he took off his glasses and placed them carefully on the desk. He exhaled, then leaned forward. He played the voicemail again, quieter this time, just to be sure he heard every syllable. You're just a walking paycheck to her now. Jake stared at the screen and whispered, good. That's all I need. Chapter 6. Wake-up call. The morning sky was still gray when the knock came. No, it wasn't a knock. It was a pounding. Heavy. Relentless. Like a warning shot at the front door. Inside the master bedroom, Samantha stirred from beneath the silk duvet, groaning. Who the hell? She mumbled, glancing at the clock. 6:12 a.m. down the hallway. The twins, Ryan and Lily, were still in their pajamas, hair messy from a restless night. Ryan peeked through the upstairs railing. Mom, someone's at the door. The pounding came again. Boom, boom, boom. Samantha threw on a robe and stormed down the steps, irritated. What kind of lunatic shows up at this hour? She unlocked the front door. A man in a black jacket and tie stood on the porch, holding a thick envelope. Mrs. Samantha Reed? Who's asking? She said, arms crossed. State certified courier. I have documents requiring immediate delivery. Before she could protest, he pressed the envelope in her chest and walked off without another word. Samantha frowned and tore it open. Her eyes scanned the top line. Notice of eviction, effective immediately. Below that, another document. Financial account shut down, executor. Jacob T. Reed. The blood drained from her face. Jake, she screamed, voice shrill and panicked. What the hell is this? From the kitchen, the smell of Colombian roast drifted through the air. Jake sat calmly at the table, a single mug steaming in his hand. He was already dressed, jeans, boots, and a black Henley shirt. Not a wrinkle on him, not a hair out of place. He didn't flinch. She stormed in, paper shaking in her grip. What the hell is this, Jake? You think this is funny? He took a slow sip of his coffee, eyes not leaving hers. Funny? No. You're evicting us. Are you insane? He set the mug down, leaned back in the chair, calm as stone. You have 30 minutes to leave my house. Silence crashed into the room. Her jaw dropped. The hell I will, she shouted. You think you can just throw us out? You think you can just, after everything? Jake stood up. Everything, he asked, voice low but deadly. You mean the 6 years of lying? The trips with my brother? The stolen memories? The weekends I spent working late, so he could take my place at family dinners? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The twins appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Ryan looked like he'd seen a ghost. Dad! Lily's voice cracked. What's going on? Jake didn't even look at Samantha now. He turned to them. You two need to pack up. Ryan stepped forward, panicked. Wait. What about college? I thought we were flying to Chicago next week for orientation. Jake chuckled, but it was a hollow sound. He walked over to the counter, grabbed a manila envelope, and handed it to Ryan. The twins flipped it open. Empty. No scholarships. No savings, Jake said bluntly. The fund's gone. You can't be serious, Lily gasped. Ryan was blinking rapidly. Wait, Dad, why? What did we do? Jake raised an eyebrow. You mean besides publicly humiliating me in front of 300 people? Besides thanking my brother for being your real dad after I broke my back paying for everything? After I sat in an empty house for decades while you all laughed at jokes I wasn't even allowed to hear. Samantha stepped in, voice rising. You're punishing them for something they didn't understand. No, Jake said flatly. I'm giving them exactly what they asked for. He turned back to the twins, locking eyes with both. Ask your real dad. Then, without another word, he stepped past them and opened the front door. You've got 27 minutes left. And he shut it quietly, finally, completely, as they stood frozen in shock behind the glass. Chapter 7. The Fallout. It started with whispers. By Tuesday morning, Jake Reed's name was no longer just typed on spreadsheets or discussed in budget meetings. It was murmured between cubicle walls, behind vending machines, at the copy station, and especially in the break room, where his quiet demeanor had now taken on the weight of a myth. No one said anything at first, just stolen glances, respectful nods. Jake walked through the office like a ghost that had burned down the house before leaving. Then came Darren from HR, bald, barrel-chested, with a loud laugh that usually annoyed Jake. But today, Darren clapped him on the back hard enough to shake his coffee. Damn, man, he grinned. You went full Spartan. Jake raised an eyebrow. Spartan. Darren leaned in. You know, the kick them into the pit type. Word gets around. Jake sipped his coffee. Expression unreadable. I didn't kick anyone. They walked off a cliff they built themselves. Behind him, someone muttered, cold-blooded, but with a tone that suggested admiration, not criticism. In the break room, Angela from accounting tried to ask casually, rough weekend? But she couldn't even finish the question. She just handed Jake a fresh Danish and nodded with quiet solidarity. He took it without a word. It wasn't just the office. The fallout was spreading like oil and water, reaching every corner of his life. His phone lit up constantly, but not from spam calls or notifications. Samantha, 11 missed calls. Marcus, 5 missed calls, 2 voicemails. Unknown number, potential lawyer, 4 missed calls. Samantha, we need to talk now. Marcus, you think this is over? You'll regret this, bro. Samantha, I'll take you for everything if you don't stop this. He scrolled through them all like swatting at flies, then blocked both numbers. His email inbox was worse. Legal threats mixed with desperate apologies, all written in rushed grammar and all-caps rage. From Samantha Reed, Jake, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is petty and childish. The twins don't deserve this. Neither do I. You've always been the adult, be that now. Reverse the financial lockdown, or I will take legal action. He replied only once. From Jake Reed, you were right about one thing. I've always been the adult, and I've finally stopped raising 3 kids. Then he hit block. But Jake wasn't just cutting them off. He was erasing them surgically, piece by piece. He opened a hidden folder on his personal laptop. Operation Fallout. Inside were files the private investigator had delivered, photos, screenshots, videos, text messages, GPS logs. There were time-stamped images of Marcus and Samantha kissing in hotel lobbies, drinking wine on a balcony labeled Napa, and laying on beach chairs in Aruba, where they had claimed to be at a work conference. One folder contained voicemail recordings. Jake double-clicked on one. Marcus laughing. She keeps saying you're too boring. Just a walking paycheck. I mean, hell, if I'd known being you was that easy, I'd have stolen your life sooner. Jake didn't even flinch anymore. Instead, he got to work. He uploaded one particular video to a disposable cloud link. Nothing explicit, but just enough. It showed Samantha and Marcus in a hotel room, fully clothed but intimate, laughing, drunk. Marcus toasting to getting away from boring OL Jake. Samantha giggling in response, whispering something about finally being with a real man. Jake sent the link to a select group of contacts. No context, no subject, no signature. His in-laws, his best friend Brian, a few mutual couple friends, Samantha's church group email chain. He didn't need to explain anything. By the next morning, the bridge had burned. Brian texted him a single word. Damn. His mother-in-law, Patricia, called 4 times. On the 5th, Jake finally picked up, just to make it clear. Jake, she began, frantic. Don't. Please listen. I had no idea. He cut her off coldly. You raised a liar. She gasped, stuttering. Jake's voice was ice. Not my problem. He hung up. No screaming. No explanations. No second chances. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. Jake was halfway through reviewing a quarterly budget when a knock came. Firm. Hesitant. The kind of knock that didn't belong to a client, a coworker, or a friend. He knew. He didn't look up. Come in. The office door creaked open, and there she was. Samantha. Hair frizzed at the ends like she'd been pulling at it. Dark circles bruised her eyes. Her once vibrant posture had shrunk into itself, back slouched, shoulders curled inward, as if guilt was pressing down with every step. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week, like the storm that destroyed his heart had finally landed on hers. Jake. Her voice cracked. He didn't stop typing, didn't even look at her. She stepped closer, trembling. Please, I need to talk. Jake finally raised his eyes, slowly, like lifting the dead weight of indifference. You have 5 minutes. Use them wisely. Her lip quivered. I made a mistake. Jake chuckled bitterly. That's what you're going with? A mistake? Tears spilled over as she dropped into the chair across from him, hands trembling in her lap. I didn't think you'd actually leave us. I thought you'd be mad, sure, but not this. Not throw us out. He stared at her, then leaned back, folding his hands behind his head, his voice flat. You didn't leave me, Samantha. She blinked. He leaned forward, his eyes now sharp, knife-edged. You replaced me. That broke her. She sobbed in her palms, shaking violently, the weight of consequences she never truly imagined crashing down like bricks. I thought you didn't care anymore, she cried. You were always working. You never laughed. Marcus was just. He was there. He listened. Jake scoffed. He was there because I was providing. I was the reason you had a home to sit in while you cried to my brother about your boring, reliable husband. I was lonely, Jake. I was stupid, she whispered. But I never thought it would end like this. Jake's face was unreadable. He rose from his desk, walked toward the window, hands in his pockets. His voice, when it came, was cool and composed. You had 20 years. She said nothing. He turned to face her. 20 years of safety, of love, loyalty, sacrifice. And now, he nodded toward the hallway. Now you can't even afford gas. She winced like he'd struck her. I lost my card. The twins are adults. Jake cut in. They made their choice at graduation. Her voice was a whisper now. Please, Jake. Just one more chance. He tilted his head, something close to pity flickering in his eyes. But it was gone just as quickly. You didn't ask for another chance when you shared hotel beds with Marcus while I was working overtime for their college fund, he said coldly. You didn't hesitate to build a secret life. Now you want scraps from the table you flipped. Her lips moved, but no words came. His phone buzzed. A message. He pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen. Marcus. Jake's face didn't change, but something in his eyes hardened. Without a word, he held the phone up and turned the screen toward her. Marcus, let's talk like men. Jake smirked, then slowly tapped on his photo gallery, found a screenshot he'd saved earlier that morning. A picture of the emptied college fund ledger. Negative balance. He typed a single line below it. Talk to your kids. Then he hit send. Samantha's breath caught. Jake tucked the phone into his pocket and walked past her to the door, opening it wide. Your 5 minutes are up. Chapter 9. The Rebuild. 3 months. That's how long it had been since Jake slammed the door on the life he once called his own. And for the first time in years, he didn't wake up with a weight on his chest. The sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his new apartment. A sleek, open-concept space on the 21st floor overlooking the city skyline. Clean lines, polished wood floors, matte black appliances, and a quiet that wasn't lonely anymore, just peaceful. Jake stood by the window, shirtless, coffee mug in hand, wearing gray sweats and a new kind of calm on his face. The chaos was behind him, but the lessons, they stayed sharp. His phone buzzed. Logan, you good for the 3 p.m. group today? He smiled faintly and typed back. Always. At exactly 3 o'clock p.m., Jake walked into the community center's side room, a repurposed gym space, now filled with foldable chairs, a whiteboard, and a dozen young men in their 20s. Some looked lost, some angry. All of them carried shadows in their eyes. Jake clapped his hands once. All right, gentlemen, let's talk. One of the newer guys, maybe 22, spoke up. How do you stop being mad? Like, when she lies to your face and pretends you're the one who's overreacting? Jake chuckled. It was a low, lived-in sound. You don't stop being mad, he said. You redirect it. He grabbed a marker and started writing. 1. Know your worth. 2. Don't beg for loyalty. 3. Protect your peace. Then he turned, looking every man in the eye. Never ignore the red flags. Never love someone more than they respect you. They nodded slowly. Some scribbled in notebooks. One guy wiped a tear and muttered, Damn, that hit hard. After the session, Jake lingered to talk with a few of the guys. It was fulfilling, not just as therapy for them, but for him. Every conversation rebuilt something inside of him that betrayal had shattered. Later that evening, he stood in the underground parking lot of his apartment, keys in hand, admiring the glinting silver beast that sat in his reserved spot. A brand new F-150 Platinum, fully loaded, his name on every inch of the title. He ran a hand over the hood, smirking. Finally spent money on someone who deserves it, he murmured. Jake climbed in, fired it up, and drove through the city streets, wind down, country rock playing low, fingers tapping on the steering wheel. Saturday morning, he sat on his balcony, scrolling through hotel listings in Italy. A travel fund. That was the first bucket he created after splitting everything. Each month, a portion of his income funneled into 3 things. Freedom, peace, and joy. The Amalfi Coast. Tokyo. Iceland. He had options now. He wasn't trying to run away from the past anymore. He was simply building a future where it didn't belong. He was dating again, too, slowly. Nothing serious. Just dinner here. A concert there. Laughter over drinks. No expectations, no illusions. One woman, Rachel, was particularly sharp. Smart, grounded, owned a local design firm. On their second date, she said something that made him pause. You carry yourself like a man who's already been broken and figured out how to walk taller. Because of it. Jake smiled, swirled his whiskey. Close. I was never broken. Just redirected. One Sunday evening, Jake got a call from an old neighbor. Voice hesitant. Hey, Jake, sorry to bug you, but, your son was over today. Jake's fingers tightened around the phone. Which one? Mike. He asked if I had a wrench. Said Marcus's car broke down again. Looked rough, man. Tired. Like lost. Jake exhaled slowly. Thanks for letting me know. Just thought you should hear it from someone who doesn't have an agenda. Jake hung up and sat down at the kitchen island, staring out the window as the city lights flickered on. He thought about the last thing Mike said to him. Uncle Marcus always showed up. He listened. Well, now Marcus was showing up broken, and barely able to fix a car without borrowing tools from strangers. 2 days later, Jake got a brief email from his daughter, Emily. Subject: sorry message. Can I come by? Just to talk. Not asking for anything. He didn't reply. Not yet. He needed more time. Let them sit with their choices the way he once had to sit with the lies. The rebuild wasn't just about throwing out old bricks. It was about deciding what kind of structure he wanted to live in now. Peaceful, honest, respected. He stood by the window that night, holding a glass of bourbon, city lights dancing in the reflection of the glass. His old life, his old self was gone. Not burned in rage, just replaced with something stronger, something freer. And somewhere across the city, his daughter was likely staring at a ceiling she couldn't afford, his son probably under a jacked-up car, and Marcus, dear brother Marcus, wondering how fast the illusion of fun could turn into the reality of responsibility. Jake took a slow sip and smiled to himself. Chapter 10. The Graduation Part 2. The conference room buzzed with the polite chatter of eager faces. Rows of young interns sat nervously, dressed in their sharpest business casual, flipping through programs and whispering last-minute congratulations. The air smelled of fresh coffee and polished ambition. Jake stood at the back, his hands folded loosely in front of him. He wasn't supposed to be here, at least not as a speaker. But the HR director had called him earlier that week, insisting, Jake, your story of resilience is exactly what these kids need to hear. He had agreed, mostly out of curiosity, mostly because, after everything, he wasn't the man who disappeared quietly. The room quieted as the ceremony began. Applause greeted each in turn as their name was called. Smiles, handshakes, occasional tears from proud parents. Jake watched it all with a steady heart. Not bitterness, not anger, just quiet reflection. When the last name was announced, the HR director approached the podium. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a few words from someone who knows a thing or two about loyalty and grit, Jake Reed. The room's attention shifted, and Jake stepped forward. He cleared his throat, the microphone buzzing faintly before settling. Thank you, he began, voice calm and measured. It's easy to look at a graduation like this and see just a celebration of hard work. But I see something more, something deeper. He paused, scanning the young faces, searching for understanding. Loyalty is more than just sticking around when times are good. It's standing firm when everything inside you wants to walk away. It's sacrifice. It's trust. He shifted slightly, leaning on the podium. But here's what I learned the hard way. Your loyalty is priceless. Never give it to someone who sees you as replaceable. A quiet murmur passed through the room, as if they felt the weight of those words. And if they do, Jake said, a small, almost cocky smile tugging at his lips. Smile, then disappear. The applause came slowly at first, then louder, rising to a crescendo. Hands clapped, heads nodded, phones lit up to record his final moments on the stage. Jake's smile deepened as he stepped down, shaking a few hands along the way, his eyes clear and steady. Outside, the late afternoon sun painted the city gold. The breeze was crisp, carrying the scent of rain and possibility. Jake pulled out his phone. It buzzed. A message. From Samantha. Can we talk? He stared at the screen for a long moment. The words hung there like a ghost from the past. Without hesitation, he pressed delete. He slid the phone into his pocket, took a deep breath, and started walking. Into the sunset. She thought I was just the man who paid the bills. Turns out, I was the man who owned the house.